So when the filmmakers are in attendance, aside from just getting feedback from them, letting them speak about their creative process, about the content on the screen, is there something else that adds to it, that you're in the presence of the creators or some of the collaborators at least, that's distinct from a film where you just go to wherever, Bayshore, and watch a movie at iPic and leave? Is there some added element, like, I don't want it to get too touchy-feely or something, but is there something about that presence, right, that also adds to the thrill of the festival?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely affects the kind of the viewing experience to know that there's, one of the people who created the movie is in the house with you watching the film, right? I mean, in good ways and bad, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it makes you more inclined to be receptive? Or?
Yeah, I think it, I mean, not that that's fine.
Sure.
People want to enjoy the movie or take more from it by virtue of the fact that someone's there. That's great, right? But it's definitely like, it creates again, this kind of unique sensation of watching the movie with, the whole premise of movies is that they're not present to you or something like that, right? It's like Stanley Cavell in movies or something. And then like, but in this case, right, in this very specific case, the movie is kind of present to you in a way, in that the person who's made it is kind of sitting 5 rows from you and is like noticing the crowd response, right? And it's really fascinating to me. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think there's something, the fact that it becomes a personal project, because so much about movies, I mean, so few of us even stay for the credits. You know, there are hundreds of people who work on these films, and we don't even acknowledge that their name's up on the screen most of the time. But, when we can actually see this person, it's like, oh, this is, this is their child that they're putting out there for us. And so I do think, whether or not, again, you sort of walk away liking the film, it's like a different acknowledgement of of a project that this person's really put a lot into.
And it makes it very difficult to dismiss a movie in the way you would, I think, normally too. Right?
Definitely.
That's true.
Good, I think.
Yeah. You have to acknowledge the work, the craftsmanship to it.
Right.
And maybe that's also something that appeals even to casual viewers. I mean, I feel like when I've attended the Q&A sessions at say the Milwaukee Film Festival, the questions often come from people who seem to not be uber film fans, right? They just have an enthusiasm for being here, and they're just genuinely curious to know about these people's process. I guess that also leads into my other sort of general question is, so we see the appeal of film festivals for cinephiles. There are opportunities to see obscure things that you might not see anywhere else, that might not come to your local theater. For the casual viewer, though, what sorts of things, drag them in? What gets them excited about coming to a film festival? And I think maybe partially talk about the films themselves, like, or the nature of festivals, but also in particular with Milwaukee Film Festival, the membership program, I think, maybe plays a role in that as well, and just generally fostering an enthusiasm for film within the community. So yeah, for the casual viewers, like as someone who's on the board of directors at Milwaukee Film, what do you expect to get them, or what do you expect gets them?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, first of all, one thing we found is that what gets them there are literally their friends. Yeah. A lot of the people who are first-time film festival goers go because somebody has taken them, which is kind of interesting, I think. A lot of times, like an opening night film is meant to be, sort of a big crowd pleaser. Yeah. And the part of the reason is because, since it's a bigger event, since it might be like a Cloud Atlas or something like that, if people come, if they have this experience, if there are filmmakers in attendance, then it's sort of that whole event
creates
for
momentum.
them. Yeah, and then we hope that they come back, a couple more times during the course of the 2 weeks. So that's in some ways, part of the role of an opening night film. Yeah. That's why you're not going to see. Gosh, I'm trying to think of I don't know.
One of the more obscure entries.
Yeah, right, or something. I mean, you're probably not going to see like something that's just super, super depressing. So,
Although I was quite excited to see a very depressing opening night film 2 years ago when Blue Valentine screened.
Yeah, right.
But it has this star quality, right, with Michelle Williams and Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, and that film's just so well acted.
Yeah.
So yeah. And that guy's, what's his name? Derek.
Cianfrance.
Yeah, exactly. However you say it.
Yeah, he has a new film coming out, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. He's going on to do really nice things, so it's cool.
Yeah, I think Gosling is in that one as well.
Yeah, he's in everything. Right?
Apparently. So yeah, that's actually, one of the things I was noticing flipping through the book, and I was just thinking back to my past Milwaukee Film Festival experiences. The opening night, yes, we have this thing to get people excited. And then the closing night as well seems maybe along those lines. A few years ago, Precious,
Yeah, right.
based on the novel Push by Sapphire, screened on the closing night. Buried, screened last year, the year before.
A couple years ago, yeah.
Which had Ryan Reynolds as a
Yep,
star.
yeah.
Sort of fun genre pick. And then I noticed that there's a festival Centerpiece, and I was wondering if that's new this year, or is that something that's been happening in the past?
No, we've had Centerpiece films, and we also have the Spotlight films. So those are films that that are just again, that was sort of spotlighting for some reason. So like the Centerpiece film this year is Mea Maxima Culpa, Silence in the House of God.
Right.
So we actually have the U.S. premiere of that, which is which is
That's
amazing.
quite a get.
Yeah, exactly. And so Alex Gibney, he's the Academy Award winning documentarian who did Taxi to the Dark Side. So he'll be here in attendance. This film is talking about local cinema. It's oddly local. I mean, a lot of it was filmed in Milwaukee, and it's in part about a Milwaukee priest who is accused of sexually molesting, up to 200 deaf children. So anyway, so it's a pretty serious film. It's a pretty big film, and it's really
major
pretty
filmmaker.
Yeah, major filmmaker, major film, and incredibly exciting that we have the U.S. premiere of it. So, so it was obviously a shoo-in for a Centerpiece
Of course,
film.
yeah. And so that's also like start, middle, end. We have these I don't know, scheduling bits in the film festival that draw in general audiences too, right? I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
someone may not necessarily have to be a documentary fan, may not have to know Alex Gibney to want to see this film, which has some prestige and buzz.
Yeah, yep. So, and it's funny. I mean, we have different film topics draw in different kinds of people. I mean, one of the documentaries we're showing this year is Last Year at Lambeau. And and that's I mean, this couldn't be a more perfect place for it to screen because everyone in this town is a Packers fan, so that's sort of what we're assuming is that people who like the Packers are going to want to see this film, and so they might not be sort of quote unquote normal festival goers. And another film actually that I'm really excited that we're showing is called An Affair of the Heart. It's a documentary about Rick Springfield fans.
Ooh.
and yeah, I mean, the women who directed it, they're here, they're amazing, they're so much fun. And Angela Catalano and I actually saw this film at a pre-screening party at Potawatomi, and it's just like people are just wild for Rick Springfield. But it's
very appropriate. It's screened at Potawatomi. Did Springfield perform after the screening?
He was there. But that's the thing. It's like I had never paid attention to the fact that he actually performs here at least 2 to 3 times every year.
Yeah.
He's a huge advocate of the Wisconsin Humane Society. A lot of this film was shot in Milwaukee, and like there are Milwaukee people who are in it, and and so it's just like this. I mean, it's this whole sort of subculture I didn't really think about existing here before, and it's a really, really fun film. Sort of like regardless of whether or not you're a Rick Springfield fan, it's totally worth seeing. So anyway, so you draw in different people for different reasons.
Yeah.
It's hard to follow up that story, huh?
It sort of is. I'm just sort of astounded by this cult of Rick Springfield that apparently is everywhere in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, it really sort of is.
So I'm curious then, with maybe along those lines, with Milwaukee Film, you have the membership program, and this isn't like some paid advertisement or something. This is just a genuine question. Talked about the festival itself generating, excitement about films, and this membership program has unique screenings all year round by filmmakers and films whose things don't necessarily come here, at least not even for a week sometimes. And I know in the past, like Essayist's Carlos screened. As well as Ty West, The Innkeepers was another that was offered to that program. And have you seen that program? I don't know, expanding. Like, are there more and more members? Is it
definitely? Yeah, it's really adding the screenings month to month has kind of just exploded the membership program. And it's really also sort of fun for us because, obviously we're watching festivals all year. So like we screened Being Elmo as one of our member screenings. And that was a film I saw at South by Southwest and just totally fell in love with.
Yeah.
And the timing of it was going to be wrong for our film festival. So being able to show it at a member screening is like, you still sort of feel like you get it into the program. And,
Sure.
So yeah, we've had really, really terrific response, and like you're saying, we show some films that don't show up in theaters here. Other films, like we had The Artist, before it was sort of on its Oscar run, and last year we also have a super secret member screening during the festival. So it's something that only the members can attend. They don't know what the film is prior to showing up. And last year we showed Undefeated, and that went on to win the Oscar for Best Documentary. So that was really exciting because they'd seen it, like months in advance. And anyway, so it's a cool program, yeah. And again, it's sort of what you're talking about, people talking in line and things like that. It cultivates that, but it's like every month. So we now have like a happy hour beforehand, and we see a lot of the same people there month to month. Then there's a different group of people that we see sort of afterwards that hang out, and it is like they're it's a way to have this festival experience kind of all year. So in little bite-sized pieces.
Maybe then we should go ahead and chat about some of the actual things that are screening at this year's festival. I mentioned, Ty West, The Innkeepers, was one of these membership program screenings. And Ty West, I first became aware of him through the film festival a few years ago when House of the Devil screened, and he's a really great horror director, sort of a throwback director. And he's involved in one of the screenings this year, VHS, which is a short anthology, or an anthology of shorts, like found footage. And that's part of the Hooliganti. Is that right? Hooligante.
Cinema Hooligante.
Cinema Hooligante, yes. And I'm sort of curious then how, obviously some of these are self-explanatory, the categories such as the Cream City Cinema. We have entries that have local appeal, perhaps local filmmakers. But this Cinema Hooligante is, I'm really struck by it. It's something new and exciting to me. So can you speak to how that came about?
I can't speak too much to it. It's kind of Angela Catalano's baby.
Yeah.
So she's a big horror fan. She was the one that really advocated for showing The Innkeepers as a member screening. And this is really, her. She really wanted a place to sort of showcase some of the. Horror films, but also just films that are a little bit like Beyond the Black Rainbow. I'm not sure it's a horror film proper, but it reminds me of like early Cronenberg. Like it's sort of like
something unsettling.
Yeah, and it's like the sort of Scanners, like the atmosphere of Scanners. Like that's they just got that so right. So anyway, it's a really neat program. And then of course Clown is a straight up comedy, but it's a little bit rowdier comedy than like something that might screen at the 7:00 hour.
Gets a little blue.
Exactly. Right. The thing I am just incredibly excited about is the giant spider invasion.
Yeah.
So Mark Borchardt is going to be there. Bill Rebane, the director of the film, is going to be there. And after the screening, then the two of them will have a conversation just like about the film and, Bill Rebane's a Wisconsin guy, so, sort of about making this film and all of that. And then I'm sure Mark will have interesting questions. And he's always, he's just an incredibly nice guy. So I think that's going to be a really, really cool event.
He's attained some sort of legendary status, I would say.
Yeah.
Not just local celebrity, but like he's an icon.
Oh, for
town.
Sure. Yeah. I would say throughout the world.
Yeah.
So, we've had
For those of you who aren't familiar, Mark Borchardt was the subject of American Movie, The Making of Northwestern, which is a documentary from about 13 years ago. And Mark is a local filmmaker who's just very active in the scene. You see him around at screenings, you see him at the festival. So always seems to be up to something. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I once had a conversation with him about Paul Schrader in a bathroom.
Oh, see, against Paul Schrader,
No,
he's
for him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's,
No, we've actually had filmmakers come to Milwaukee specifically because they want to hang out with Mark.
So he's hosting this film from 1975, The Giant Spider Invasion, as part of the Cinema Hooligante. Thanks to Angela, who's organized this. So what are some other screenings here? Not to just sort of get into plugs, but I genuinely am excited about the festival every year, and there's a lot of great things, a lot of great events as well. we have critic Jay Hoberman coming, who is really fascinating for lots of reasons. He's a really well-respected, established, acclaimed critic, yet he just lost his job at the Village Voice after a few decades in the last year or so. So he's here at a weird moment because he is this authority, right? Some sort of film authority, but he's at a moment in which commercial criticism is maybe on the decline, even as free online criticism is on the rise. So, yeah, thoughts, Cal? You?
Well, I mean, just about him, like, kind of like, along with Jonathan Rosenbaum, I think of him as one of the two kind of American film critics that I really think really, really highly of.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is one of the most major figures in the history of American film criticism. So I think it's kind of fantastic that he's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add.
Yeah. Well, he's coming to give a talk over his new book that's been released, Cinema in the 21st. I don't know the title. So.
Yeah, the title is actually Film After Film,
Okay.
The State of Cinema in the 21st Century.
Yes.
So, yeah, and I'm just over the moon that he's coming. So this was kind of my big get for the film festival, because Jonathan and I started talking early about, who we would get for our keynote speaker, and Jay Hoberman was sort of always my first and only choice, and so I'm just thrilled that he said yes. But yeah, so we're gonna have this talk. I mean, the fact that we're able to offer it for free to the public is also really it makes me very happy, because I'm hoping that means college students are going to be able to attend. I know a couple of people are coming up from Chicago for it. I'm hoping some people will come over from Madison too. Because I don't know how often he's in the Midwest, but
It's
I don't.
true. I mean, he's as big as a draw, if not more, than many films would be. Just having this this figure come and present these films too. I mean, as I was mentioning, he's here at a weird time commercially for film criticism, but some of the films that he's presenting are also seem like, well, at least Inland Empire from David Lynch is one of the films that he's presenting, which was Lynch's transition into digital filmmaking.
Yeah.
And Cal is not a fan of David Lynch. And someday we're going to have a long conversation about it. But it's certainly interesting that he's, as a critic, he's a figure at a crossroads, now presenting a film that is a sort of moment of crossroads for filmmaking, right?
Right.
Different technologies, different changes. And again, he's also presenting Sans Soleil by Chris Marker, who just passed away.
Yeah. Yeah, and interestingly, he's also even though it's an interesting time in his career, because as you said, he got fired from the Village Voice. I think it was last winter, and I'm the same way. Like he's one of those people that I always look to, and I actually said at one point, when I was watching all these other critics get fired and people get rid of their film critics, I was like, man, if Jay Hoberman goes, it's all over.
Right.
And then it happened, and I was devastated.
I think what I was saying was like, there's no way that they're ever going to get rid of Jay Hoberman.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but now he's got this. He's sort of been resurrected in other venues. Like he currently has a show at the Museum of the Moving Image in Queens. So he curated like a month's worth of screenings there, and then directly after the Milwaukee Film Festival, he's doing a big show with MoMA. So we've caught him at just kind of a tremendous time.
Yeah. Well, as I said, it's quite a get. It's really wonderful.
So how is he working in relation to the two movies that he's presenting? I mean, did he bring, were those his selections to present?
We sort of worked on them together, because he had, we were looking at what he was writing about in his new book. So that's where Inland Empire came from. So it was, one of those things where it's like what he was interested in, what was available, so we definitely wanted to get prints of these. And then with Sans Soleil, that was actually something I recommended, because I'd read about, his relationship to the film in the past. I know he's a huge Chris Marker fan. And so, I thought I'd throw it out there and see what happens. So anyway, he was excited to do it. So I feel, again, very lucky about that too. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's this first weekend of the film festival as well.
Yeah.
So it's coming up quickly.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, other recommendations or movies of interest as you were scanning through the book.
Just sticking with that same point for those looking for recommendations, I think there's no movie, in a certain way, there's no movie that's as like amazing as Sans Soleil. Like it's one of the finer movies ever made, in my opinion. It's a really kind of wonderful, I don't know if you call it a pseudo documentary. Like it's a documentary, but the tense of it is like I can never quite get it right. It's like letters in the future that are addressed to someone in the past, right?
Yeah.
And it's got all this like kind of him philosophizing about all the images that are in front of us and stuff, and it's just really this fascinating like half essay documentary thing that is kind of unlike anything else. It was really amazing. Yeah.
Markers really is a singular filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
People might be most familiar with La Jetée, the short film that from the 60s that was later readapted into 12 Monkeys by Terry Gilliam. And the narrative survived many permutations, but the original is still really wholly unique, I would say, in film. It's almost all photographs with narration over them. There's one moving shot in the whole film. So check out Marker if you're interested in something apart from the sorts of narrative films you might usually see.
Yeah.
One thing I've always noticed with festivals, and, Milwaukee Film Festival included, is the prominency of documentaries. And I'm curious if either of you had thoughts about what is it? Is it the documentaries have a hard time getting distribution otherwise, so the festival is a natural outlet for them to be screened? You'd mentioned about the economics of film festivals, Susan, in our preliminary chats, and is there something to that as well, that they tour around and are able to maybe get that notoriety that then leads to a broader release?
I don't know if I have a definitive answer about this. I mean, I think, documentaries are just, gosh, I don't have great words for it. I feel like documentaries right now are just doing exceptional things. And so
we're at a renaissance moment of documentaries
in
almost?
some ways, yeah. And I think part of that has to do with the access to technology. I mean, I can't even imagine having shot a documentary on film, I mean, because you really want to get everything. And so if you imagine like the expense of like the reel after reel after reel, it's sort of amazing that documentaries ever got made like prior to digital. But I would imagine that has a lot to do with it, that there's just so many more voices out there. I love documentaries too, and I think that's the other thing is like a good movie's a good movie. It doesn't matter if it's fiction or documentary or whatever.
One of my favorite films of the last several years was Morin Call, which I saw at the Milwaukee Film Festival, and really
yeah, it's a great film. Yeah.
It's a crazy documentary.
I love that guy. I was gonna bid on one of his photographs online, and I haven't done it yet. I should buy one. Support that guy.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
Were there other recommendations or other things that caught your eye?
Well, obviously I've not seen anything. Well, not seen. I don't think I've actually seen anything. Maybe I've seen Sans Soleil, but I was gonna pose some questions actually, right, in relation to movies that I've kind of heard a little bit of buzz about, both in a variety of different directions, right? Take for instance, Compliance, the Craig Zobel movie. I saw. He worked closely with David Gordon Green, who I like a lot.
I love David Gordon Green.
I saw The Great World of Sound. It's previous. Well, I don't know if it was his previous film. It was 2 films ago, perhaps. But I'm curious, your take on Compliance as a potential recommendation.
Well, I feel like I'm the perfect person to answer this question because I have not seen it yet. I plan to see it because I'm actually leading a conversation right after the film, and I've been reading a ton about it. I'm really excited to see it. It's for me, any film that generates the kind of discussion that it's generating is important in some way. And it's hard to know, like what's going to happen with that film once I'm actually in that theater watching it, because it's for anybody listening who doesn't know, it's based on this man who was calling fast food restaurants and convincing people on the phone that he was a cop, and then getting them to basically assault their employees. So I'm really excited to see it. I'm interested to talk about it with the people who are there afterwards, and sort of see how people are reacting to it, because it's been widely critically acclaimed. At the same time, there are also some stories like I think Sundance was. Did you guys read about this? And
no, I missed that.
It was just sort of a contentious Q&A at Sundance, I believe. So anyway, it's definitely one to watch. So yeah. What else you got for me?
I mean, my second question, I don't know. Adam, would you like
No, go right ahead.
My second question is always, my experience with shorts programs at film festivals is that they're kind of impenetrable in terms of selecting what it is that I should be like. The systems by which they're arranged and stuff never really reveals very much about whether or not I'm going to find particular short selection appealing or not appealing. So I was curious if you had any that you were particularly cared for.
Anna Sampers is our shorts programmer, and she's honestly developed a really great reputation. They invited her out to Seattle this year actually to judge for them, because even though she's not been doing it long, she's really got a great eye and a great feel for it.
It seems like more diverse selections than any previous year I can recall.
Yeah. I'm not sure why, but I'm really excited about the Quiet Riots, the shorts Quiet Riots, because they're all about, I'm reading the description, which I probably shouldn't have done before I started speaking, but anyway, it seems like she was watching these films and sort of saw this theme, reoccurring in these films that she really loved, and so she put together this selection, and it is a new one for this year. The Midnight Shorts are always a huge hit, so again, a little bit rowdier.
Yeah, of course.
But if I can get this, I actually am gonna sort of do a shout out for my programs.
Right ahead.
The kids shorts, those that's under my my umbrella, and I feel like the kids shorts are actually like really, really quality too. There's a lot of great animation in there. I don't know, just a lot of like fun stuff. And it's some of them approach sort of more serious topics, but at a child level, which is, we've had parents sort of come over and over, and they're like, this is just stuff that my kid doesn't see anywhere else. And so it's sort of like trying to plant that cinephilic seed, and like hopefully they'll grow into little cinephiles. And part of that too, actually, we have a kids screening committee. And so, we had them all at Betty Bryn, and we watched like, I don't know, between 6 and 10 shorts each day, and like had them rate and talk about them and everything. It was kind of great, like hearing these 6-year-olds like give their opinions on the film. And
mix in a Valkmaar and
yeah, exactly. And there was like one kid that was just totally brilliant, like smarter than every adult in the room, and was like giving these really sort of nuanced critiques. And this other little girl, she's like, I don't know, I liked everything. So it was very sweet.
Sounds very charming.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, we should probably wrap it up. Are there any last thoughts? I mean, the one recommendation I had, I mean, it's an oldie, but Alfred Hitchcock's Blackmail, which has a both sound and silent version. And the silent version is coming with a live appearance by the Alloy Orchestra, who are very renowned for their accompaniments to live art to silent cinema, both in person, and they've done soundtracks for many high-profile releases, I think on Kino and some other imprints. So I saw them when they performed along with the full Metropolis, I think 2 years ago, and it was really wonderful.
Yep.
So that's my recommendation.
I think it's a good one.
Any last thoughts? Any other bits about festivals? Cinephilia?
If I can put one more plug in, I want to put in a plug for our panels, because obviously Jay Hoberman is our keynote, but we have a bunch of really great panels, and they're all free and open to the public. And I think the one I'm most excited about is called 3 A-Holes Talk About Web Videos. So it's the guys from Red Letter Media, and then Jack Packard, who works for Funny or Die. So they're basically gonna be at the Why Not 3 one night and just sort of
That's
talk about web videos. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Red Letter Media did a great sort of takedown of Prometheus this summer.
Yeah, they're great guys
delightful.
too. So, yep.
All right. Well, Cal, Susan, thanks for joining us again on The Pictures Get Smaller. And we'll be back next week with something entirely different, I think, gearing towards video games, perhaps.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
No problem. See you all soon.